All right, joining me now, Caitlyn, Huey Burns, former Senator Scott Brown, Gina Loudon, and Eric Erickson. By the way, Mercedes Schlapp is speaking with Ben Carson right now. She is going to join the show later. But, Gina, you're at CPAC. Tell us the reaction down there to the news, to the Trump news.
Well, I think people were at first really surprised, Charles, but I think this sort of fits with the very unconventional campaign of Donald Trump. I mean, he's always said it's not about the political insiders, which is pretty much all CPAC is. It's always been about the people and the voters, and there's an election tomorrow, and he wants to be with the voters.
But, I think
it's exactly Donald Trump.
When he said he would do it, he knew there would be an election tomorrow. So this didn't just pop up out of left field. Hey, you got a choice between this or the election. And having said that, those people in that room with you, those aren't the establishment, folks. Those are conservatives. These are people who've carried the message for years, often to empty rooms. So I don't know. I mean, these are the people that he's fighting against, or I thought he was fighting against the establishment, the folks in D.C.
Well, yes and no. There are, of course, more local people here. You know, so there are a lot of people from D.C. and from the surrounding area, and honestly, many people who have government jobs. I did my own little weird survey just so I could tell you this, just so I could answer some of this for you. And most people that I asked if they were glad that Trump was not coming, they would say, yeah, they either had a friend or family member, or they themselves were involved in some sort of government job in the bureaucracy. So, you know, it's just that Trump has so bashed the establishment that a lot of people in D.C., he's just not their cup of tea, and he wasn't going to be their cup of tea, even if they call themselves conservative. Well,
Eric Erickson, I disagree 1,000% that everybody who's against Donald Trump is, quote, the establishment. And I know a lot of people at that conference, they are pure conservatives who hate the establishment. Tell me your assessment.
Well, actually, according to the CPAC data, about the majority of, just over 50% of the people who attend are college-age students who are coming, and as well as a lot of senior citizens who have been very active in the conservative movement going back to the Reagan days. Not actually a lot of government employees there, private sector, retirees, and college students. And I think we're missing that Matt Schlapp, the head of ACU, has said that they had a big argument with Donald Trump over whether or not he would take questions from that crowd. And Trump declined to take questions, and the rule was that every candidate for president, including Hillary Clinton if she wanted, could come, but they had to take questions from the crowd. When Donald Trump said no, Matt Schlapp said that he would still be invited to come, but they would make time for him to take questions, whether he wanted to or not. So Trump declined and scheduled an event in Wichita, Kansas instead.
Well, I can tell you, after last night's debate, I probably wouldn't be in the mood to take questions either. But Senator Scott Brown, you have, again, you're obviously a Donald Trump surrogate, and you've helped him out, but you've also talked about the need to try to sew the party together, if you will, and this doesn't help.
Well, first of all, CPAC, it is a lot of the Washington folks that are there. A lot of government jobs, a lot of government involvement, and quite frankly, the election is tomorrow. I would have gone and met the voters in the states that are voting tomorrow. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. Someone who's run
But the obligation was already made before that, though. I mean, we keep talking about the election as if they called it today. I mean, it's Charles,
when it doesn't matter. It does. Charles, if I could just finish, it doesn't matter. The election's tomorrow, and there's 4 states voting tomorrow, and that's critically important. Should he have let them know a little earlier? Sure. But, you know, you adjust and adapt, and you go and get the votes. Obviously, Ted and Marco, they have an inside a lane in that area, and that's fine. And newsflash, once again, not only to Eric and everyone else, not everyone's a hardcore conservative. There are regular voters who are conservative and who aren't conservative. They're moderates, liberals, you know, Tea Party, free staters who want to get involved in the process. And what Mitt Romney and what others are doing by pushing back against someone like Donald is, you know, making him stronger, because there's more and more anger out there. And I was encouraged, however, at the end when they all said that they would support Donald, and I know for a fact he would support the ultimate nominee. And I can't say the same thing for Eric. I can't say the same thing for Mitt Romney, and that's the problem.
But would
they can do it, and they're battling with him every day.
But ultimately, Senator Brown, should the President of the United States be the president of all people, or should he say, hey, you know what, these guys didn't like me, they were against me? I mean, Donald Trump said he said he's going to be the unifier. CPAC invited him. He said okay, and now you're dissing the organization. That's not fair.
Charles, listen, I've spoken at CPAC. Mitt Romney's spoken at CPAC. They're great people, and they're doing their thing, and God bless them. Okay, but there is an election tomorrow. There's 4 important states tomorrow. and I'm going to continue to encourage him to be the person who's going to reach out to everybody. But you can't please everybody, all right? You just can't.
All right.
So he's going to go and do his thing, and he's going to try to go get
Gina,
votes. And I
Gina, we're going to come to you, but
encourage him to do that.
But we've got Caitlyn here in studio. Caitlyn, I know you've been to CPAC in the past. You weren't this time. What do you make of the developments? Listen, obviously there's an election tomorrow, but we knew that before this was scheduled.
Right. I think he could have figured out a way to maybe do a video, video in, or do something remotely. A lot of people have done that in the past. But to everyone's point, I mean, CPAC is, the conservative, the base of the conservative movement. Trump is not part of the conservative movement. I think Cruz has had some effective attacks on him as not being a true conservative because he hasn't really been involved. He has gone to CPAC in the past, but this is not really his bread and butter. I think he would have been setting himself up for some boos from the crowd, perhaps, and some toughness there.
Gina, I saw Ted Cruz speaking there during the Deirdre show, and I didn't see a Q&A session. Maybe they had it or maybe they didn't. Certainly, if that was just only applicable to Donald Trump, that would have been unfair. But you're at CPAC. Why did you go? I mean, if you don't think that these people are really grassroots, they represent grassroots conservative values, you think they're all just D.C. insiders?
Well, no, I've been coming for years and years, and I do think that there are definitely a lot of conservatives here. There's a lot of support for Donald Trump. There's a lot of support for each candidate. I would say it's split pretty well, really, Charles. But it doesn't surprise me, the whole thing about Mr. Trump not coming. And this is why. His focus from day one has been on winning. He manages to be the news cycle every day, somehow. He's in the news again because of this, and it just doesn't surprise me. This has been his campaign tactic from the beginning, focus on winning, and that's what he's trying to do. So I think, people are going to take their own routes to victory. I wish he were here. I personally would not have advised him not to come, but he didn't ask me, Charles.
Oh, boy, not this time. Senator Brown, the other big news, of course, from CPAC, Dr. Ben Carson, I got to tell you something. I'm glad I wasn't on air when he was giving that speech. I got a little choked up. I love the guy, and it was probably his best speech, maybe at the last minute. But he did talk about criteria for endorsement. He said he would like someone who can lead America in the world, someone who's had significant accomplishments in life, someone with clear ideas, and also someone who treats others and their family with a certain amount of respect. And he also talked about integrity. Who do you think he was talking about, Senator Brown?
It's funny. I was trying to, it's funny you say that, Charles. As I was listening, I was going, oh, check, that's Donald Trump. Check, that's Trump. Check, that's Marco. Check, that's Kasich. So it was very interesting. I was trying to figure out who it ultimately would be. And then he went into the integrity thing. And the one thing that keeps in the back of my mind and a lot of voters of Senator Ben Carson's supporters is what Ted Cruz did to him in Iowa. They're not going to forget. And I heard all the pundits saying, oh, well, Ted's going to get those votes along with Marco. Well, with respect, I don't think so at all. I think they're going to go to Cruz and Kasich and Marco, but the majority going to Trump. I don't think Cruz is going to get many.
I had the same gut feeling as you. I was like, you know what? I don't know what happened in that closet or what's happened since then. If Ted was able to turn him around, maybe the firing of his communications director, Eric. We got 30 seconds. Who do you think Ben Carson's leaning toward?
I think there's a rumor on the ground that he's looking at Marco Rubio. I know a lot of the detailed surveys of his supporters say that they're looking at Marco Rubio, so maybe he does help Rubio ultimately. There are a lot of faith-based, high-integrity-looking voters who want a Christian candidate.